I just wanted to clarify a few things at the start of the video. The first is that a lot of this video is based on testimony, with little by way of evidence that can be provided. Most of this video consists of things that I remember seeing as a subscriber of several channels involved over 10 years ago. I'm not asking that anyone believes everything I say 100%, since a lot of this is based on my own personal memories of what happened as a bystander, and there's bound to be cases where I misremember, am subject to bias, or just don't know all of the details. I am providing evidence wherever I can, but it isn't always possible as stated. Due to this being so long ago, a lot of the videos on the subject matter have gone. They've either been deleted, channels have been shut down, and so on and so forth. It's because of this that I made this video, to compile as much of the information as possible in one place, so that it can be made readily available to the general public. The subject matter of this video is possibly being released from prison in a few years' time, if he hasn't been released already, and I feel that he may re-enter the world with a clean slate, as the internet has seemingly almost forgot about him. I hope to rectify that with this video. I'd like to add a bit onto my disclaimer here and say that all images used of the target of this video is taken from the public. He has uploaded these images publicly, and that goes for all the other people involved as well. These are all public images. These people have a public platform. They have had no reservation about being seen online, and the names used are names that are freely available to find if you just look into these people. So any privacy complaints are invalid. I don't give a shit who you are or what the problem is. They are invalid. And if you are somebody who's not Stephen or Annette, I'm always willing to hear you out if you want to talk about anything and clear something up. Please don't immediately just abuse YouTube's tools. We've got enough people doing that already, so on with it. Stephen Gandy has quite the long internet life, going as far back as the early 2000s, possibly the late 90s. However, he mostly came to prominence in the late 2000s and early 2010s because of his more public profile. I've known him to operate under the names of Aspergianstar2009, sometimes 2010 or whatever year, and Chemerblinker, and a couple of names based around those. I also have an archive channel here called Mr. Bleeperman, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's gone under a plethora of other names, like a lot of dodgy people that I've come across. On the surface, he comes across as a seemingly innocent vlogger whose main point of contention were Doctor Who and Asperger's syndrome, which, as the name suggests, is something that he was diagnosed with. He occasionally vlogged about his personal experiences and had the odd fixation here and there, like how he ranted on girls on dating sites for days at a time, based on some bad experiences on Plenty of Fish, and often strayed into incel territory. However, behind the scenes, this guy was into some pretty sick shit. Shit that actually landed him in prison in the end, where he hopefully still resides. This vile predator has a long history of degeneracy, bitterness, and cruelty, both on and off camera. I make this video with one objective in mind: to keep the information on Stephen Gandy alive, so that those at risk of him can hopefully be warned. From what I understand, there's talk of this guy being around as early as 2000 from several unrelated girls who claim that he asked them inappropriate questions, and some accusations of grooming. One such person was a user on Intensity Squared, which is a community of autistic people who like to blow off steam and shitpost. I used to hang out on Intensity and several of its sister communities, and I know a few people on this thread in some capacity. It kind of blew my mind when these two worlds of mine collided at some point. I did have some reservations about sharing this, but this is a public forum and nobody involved is using their real name. Not to mention either it's linked on Steven's Kiwifarms thread, so I'm not showing anything you couldn't find by googling this shit. Natalia Evans is the only person named, and her name is a pseudonym based on a character she writes, so I don't have any worry about potentially name dropping any victims or anything. So Natalia says in response to this thread about Aspergianstar2009 randomly friending people, "Oh, I know him, it's Steve, and he is Chemer. Ugh, he is a paedophile, he once added me as a friend and I denied him." You seem to know everyone. You mean he goes after prepubescent or underage girls or boys? Yes, peeing on them, touching them, making them take off their clothes to see them naked spells out paedophile to me. What does he talk about it? We should appoint you to the official investigator of Intensity Squared. Lol. He did it in MSN and I blocked him. P-Guy thinks what I said about him was a rumour, but why would I lie about someone? Shrug. I'm not surprised Aspergianstar2009 will deny what he used to do to me on MSN. By the way, P-Guy is one of Aspergianstar's White Knights, who is apparently still active today. His full online handle is Indispensable P-Guy. I remember hearing his name a lot back in the day, and it was very rarely for good reasons. From what I've read, he's currently trying to push a narrative that Steven has been framed by the police and hasn't done any of the things that he's been arrested for, and he's apparently trying to scrub the internet of Steve's name and past actions. Which, if that's true, he's made my job of archiving this shit even harder. I reached out to someone who I found who was one of Steven's victims. And in truth, I wasn't expecting them to agree to talk about it, but I thought, well, I'll give them the chance. And to my surprise, they were very willing to do so, and I'm very grateful and I admired it a lot. Unfortunately, I've been working on the basis that nobody would want to talk about this, so I hadn't really factored it into the little plan I'd built up for the video structure. So forgive me if this feels a little ad hoc. It's honestly worth it though to me. I don't care if this damages the whole structure. It is so worth it to me to hear this frankly brilliant person speak out about what happened to them and shed some light on what it was like for those behind closed doors. Thank you, it's a big help. The first thing I wanted to ask was what you talked to him on, like what programs or sites.
I mainly talking to him on Yahoo Messenger. He was the reason I made this Facebook page, but we mostly spoke on Yahoo, and sometimes Skype.
I thought it would be Yahoo since that was like his main stomping ground. Do you remember if he said anything or did anything that is a red flag in hindsight, like manipulation tactics or anything of that nature?
The first time was on my 14th birthday. I was talking to him on voice chat and he asked if I liked his body. I said I didn't feel comfortable with that question and he got mad and acted like he didn't ask anything inappropriate. I think the biggest red flag would be him telling me I'm not like most girls and was so intelligent and that I must be an Aspie.
I heard from another girl how he asked inappropriate questions about peeing on people. Rancid little man. He also had this weird Asperger's superiority complex thing going on. Did he get angry after that? Did the inappropriate questions get more frequent?
I don't remember if he asked a lot of questions or not. I remember the second time he got mad after I tried to avoid his question. I think it had to do with panties, and after I refused to answer he got quiet and kinda creepy. He was always getting angry if I said no to something.
That sounds accurate. He got super pissy if he didn't get his way. Lost a lot of friends over it from what I'm reading. I read that you told someone about this online and Steven came out of the woodwork and threatened you. Was that a recent thing?
That was years ago when I was 17. His girlfriend then was venting to me about him and I had told her that maybe it was for the best for her daughter, and then I told her everything. He stalked me online after that. Every time someone asked me about him and I told them, he would go to my mom and threaten to call the police. He stopped when my mom told him off.
He has a long history of that sort of stuff. doxing and threatening people in their homes. I can't help but be baffled at how stupid he was for ringing up your parents' house and risking being caught, but then again, that is him. One thing I also wanted to ask was if you remember what username he used at the time. I can venture a guess as he revolved around a certain few, but I just wanted to make sure if he used a different one whilst doing this stuff. To clarify, I wanted to look up to see if there were any usernames I hadn't come across yet so I could find more info on the guy.
Aspergianstar2009.
Oh wow, he wasn't the best at covering his tracks then. I know him as Aspergianstar2009 and Chemerblinker, the X's being dates or other words. This guy really was a master of covering his tracks. Well, that's all I had, though I did want to ask if there's anything else you wanted to say or bring up.
When I first started doing what he wanted me to, that bothered me the most for years until I finally cried about it a couple years ago. I was maybe 15 at the time, was staying up late to talk to him and he wanted me to expose myself on cam for him. I didn't really want to, but he got mad. At that time I didn't want him to be mad at me because I felt like I was getting feelings for him, so I did it. He thanked me after that, and I eventually got so used to doing it that I did it for him almost every night until I was almost 17. Of course he would also show himself on cam, and we would do things over the phone as well. I just feel lucky that I'm in the US while he's in the UK. I probably would have tried to meet him if we were close by, and I'm sure that wouldn't have ended well. Strangely, I sometimes want to talk to him one more time. More for closure, I guess, though I don't know if he has changed enough to actually be civil. Probably not. Either way, I kinda took the whole situation as a lesson, and I have 3 little girls of my own now that I can teach these things to, and I know what to watch out for. Grooming is scary to me. I was that kind of teen that though I was so smart and there was no way I could be manipulated into anything. But obviously that wasn't the case. I'm glad I came to my senses when I was 17 lol.
I'd just like to say that I really am grateful that this person spoke out. It's nice to get a bit of perspective from the other side, and it's honestly, I know that some people have an easier time than others when it comes to this stuff, but regardless, it can't be easy to revisit this stuff, and I legitimately appreciate it, and I'm honestly glad that this person's seemingly in a better place now. Maybe the P guy cover-up is Steve posing as P guy. I've seen the odd Kiwifarms comments suggesting that to be the case. Quite honestly, this does fit his MO well, as he is known to do most of his prowling on MSN and online chat rooms. I found a comment whilst researching later parts of this video which shows some of the other gross tendencies. It's funny, and I meant to do a video about this in response to one of yours, but my time online began around 97 to 99. Message boards and AOL groups were where I'd spend hours writing like this. Then I was offline for a time and came back around 2003/2004. Smallville, the Superman show, took up a lot of that time. Even though Star Trek was bigger in my life, Smallville was rife on boards, and that's where I made my stake. Soon that vast ground became overwhelmed by flame wars and ships, the character and couple specific fandoms, and I met a few people that were seemingly genuine and easygoing. And that's when games with multiple screen names and manipulation of people seen as enemies began. Much as you described with the artist formerly known as Chemerblinker, I was either in or could not be trusted. I'm not one to be easily coaxed, so I played along at a distance. I wanted to see how far it'd go. I said I'd make friends with the enemy, which I genuinely did, but under the guise to the twerps, as it being to do recon on them. I fed them false info that I purported, and I got this from a lot of genuine, friendly and nice folks to see what they'd do with that. And they posted it and tried to ruin those good people's lives. Well, I never had anything legit to give out as far as info went, and all this backfired on the manipulative morons. I was summarily dropped as a friend and trusted, and I was happy about that, because I then resumed my real friendships with the nicer folks. But, as I said before, soon after, I cut my online ties due to financial problems, much like it is now. Only then I was offline for nearly 5 years before I was able to come back. I was somewhat disenchanted with it, but I've since found it to have grown into something worthwhile and fun, with making friends like yourself among the greatest perks. Yourself being I just subscribed now, describe. We'll get to him in a bit. And so my time online is again limited, but I'll be back with any hope. So this implies that he's been around for a while, as I said, and that he's been doing various shitty things. This implies that he's running an entire fucking cabal of angry fanboys just trying to turn people toxic against each other. Seriously, this is one fucked up rabbit hole. It gets even worse. According to the Express and Star, a news site, Stephen has a history of making indecent images, and in 2006 this earned him an unspecified conviction.
I'd rather be liked than people be scared of me. I'd rather people say, "Oi, I can't wait for Steve to come in the chat room because I want a good conversation with him," than think, "Oh my god, I better be nice to Steve because he'll boot me otherwise."
Aspergianstar2009 posted a number of books over the course of his internet tenure, a lot like Stetson Hardwick and Lance, and several of them were just as offensive if not worse. The first thing you'll notice is that all the covers look like they were made in a primary school IT class back in the late 90s. Look at this shit, it looks like fucking AIDS. Why are their pictures so badly cut out? You could have just framed them or done some photo effect on them like you did with the other two, but no. Just everything about this cover makes me ill. Fucking hell. This guy insisted as well that he was a big fucking computer guy who had all the talent and shit. Pfft. Yeah, okay. Honestly, you could have done a better job with one stock image. I mean, I'll give it to Stetson, he at least figured that out. Also, if he used clip art for this stuff, he's probably violated copyright. Which isn't the first thing he's violated, but you know. The covers gradually got better. Maybe it's because his second wife and kiddie supplier Annette got involved. Towards the end, they actually resemble something that you'd possibly buy in a shop to use as a cum rag. Of course, he still managed to fuck up the top layer of text to the point that it's unreadable due to his obsession with horrible colours. If you think that the covers are offensive, just wait until I tell you a bit about their supposed contents from a friend of his who apparently read these books. Most of it was his personal take on autism and how to help autistic people, as well as him talking about his own personal experiences and interests. However, according to one of his friends, King Scribe, Stephen apparently wrote about paedophilia, as he said it was a trait of autism. Yes, I'm not shitting you. This wall-eyed motherfucker slandered every single person on the autistic spectrum, calling them all pedophiles, including himself.
You're more of a pedophile than me!
There are clout-chasing dipshits who have spent years trying to be this grotesque, and this knob managed to do it in a single sentence. Fucking bravo. He and his wife, possibly other family members as well, seemingly went around trying to plug these things in as many places as possible. Every time I read a forum, someone always found a reason to recommend this shit to people. I have read many books by so-called experts and thought I could write something better, but never did. I have been reading this book of a person who has Asperger's and Tourette's. It comes from his life from a child to an adult. And there's some coping strategies, some humour, some émerger. I think that it would help you to read 3 books I have just read. They are free until tonight, so you can buy as many that are out there by Stephen Gandy on Amazon.co.uk. You Are Not Alone by Stephen Gandy for downloading from Amazon onto PC for a Kindle. Good book, You Are Not Alone by Stephen Gandy on Amazon and Kindle. One person who has Asperger's and Tourette's and his full life of coping strategies in real life. Seriously, this person can't write for fucking shit. He also has an account on Twitter for his girlfriend that just seemingly spams links to Stephen's YouTube channel and plug his shitty books. The Twitter account in question is called Charmed Angel. My boyfriend has Asperger's and has recently written a book on Kindle. Feel free to ask any questions. Yeah, I've got one, can you fuck off please? It oddly has over 2,000 followers, even though it has only a handful of tweets and virtually no interaction. Now, I'm not saying that Stephen bought a load of bots to bloat the account, but I can't think of a better explanation as to why this would be the case. Not to mention, he did that shit on his YouTube as well, which was proven by Mr. Tardis Reviews during their spat over the flop TV sitcom Come Fly With Me. Yeah, I'll get to that in a bit, I promise. I mean, his Mr. Bleeper Man account has 334 subs, but his most viewed video hasn't even hit 5k views. Bear in mind, this was in 2010 and views were a bit easier to get at the time. Like, my most viewed videos on my old channel were just shy of 200k views. I don't know, it's not the only explanation, but I find it really suspect. Stephen Gandy opened up the account Aspergianstar2009 on the 11th of November 2008. So, this is Stephen's peak, a point in which he reached the height of his F-grade internet fame and infamy. This was the channel that first got my attention all those years ago, as I got a random subscriber and friend request from Stephen. See, at the time, Stephen was a firm believer in the sub-for-sub approach to YouTube, an approach that is despised by a lot of people on the platform, especially those who've made it big on their own merits. What's funny about this is that he actually ended up giving a lot more than he received, and he hit the ceiling limit as to how many channels he could sub at once. I believe this was around 2,000 channels, though it can increase or decrease based on several variables. This earned him just shy of 10,000 subscribers, which is a decent amount, especially for back then, but you got to bear in mind that the vast majority of these were earned through bot farming and sub for sub. He would traipse through the entirety of YouTube sending a sub and friend request to try and get a sub back. In fact, a fair few threads that I found were people asking who the fuck he is and why he'd friended and subbed them. Does anyone know who the fuck YouTuber Aspergianstar2009 is? He subscribed to me even though I haven't been active there in months. He obviously knows who I am. I was one of those people that he randomly friended and subbed and wasn't aware of the sub for sub model, and legitimately was interested in his content. Being on the autistic spectrum and a viewer of Doctor Who, it seemed that his content aligned with my own interests. And I was new to the site, so I thought, fuck it, let's be friends. It's a bit weird, but I went to school with a lot of weird people and we got along just fine, so whatever. It was pretty funny though when I found out that he'd unsubbed from literally everyone he'd done sub for sub with, and went back to square one without telling anyone. He was more than happy to keep your sub, but he was going to quietly welch on his part of the deal and hope that you never noticed. I mean, I didn't give that much of a shit, but I did find it hilariously dishonest of him. The channel mostly consisted of him talking at his computer and talking into the shittiest microphone that he could find. I know that it was hard to get your hands on a good mic back then, but Jesus fucking Christ, some of this guy's videos sound like pure static or an electro-larynx.
Okay, I've had some retarded... This is a reply to Bender. I accept what you say about, what you told me it was a wig. So I know where you're coming from. And she was bloody... Booting work. You've got to understand how booting works to understand where I'm coming from here. Booting works by packet overload. In other words, Yahoo Messenger only has so much of a buffer. I didn't want, not for any racial reasons, for anyone that's watching here who might be black or whatever, a black doctor. I think it's equivalent to having a black Superman. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky, and the sweet silver song of a life.
Still, his content was okay for the time, I guess, for a small channel. He more or less did what several of my friends do at the moment. He just sat at his desk and talked about whatever he likes for about 10 minutes, and most of the time he brought up interesting points. Well, points that interested me as a 14-year-old any road. Another thing this bumblefuck did was put his home country as Canada so he could cheat and get himself a few of those most viewed awards from back in the day. Joke's on him though, I was 80th most viewed comedian in the United Kingdom one day and 96th another, which is a much better bragging point as every cunt is a comedian in this country. I actually was a bit more interested in his autism content given that he was a fair bit older than me and explained how he found certain experiences to be. For example, he went over work experience and what that was like for him, and apparently he was tricked into coming in his best clothes and then told to sweep up a garage floor or something. Kind of like Aunt Kathy, I do like hearing the tales of older people than myself and the occasional funny story that they have, in the hopes that I can learn from their experiences or just generally enjoy myself. The Doctor Who content was just kind of... it was quite opinionated, which isn't a bad thing, but I found it to get boring and tedious. Most of the time he'd share like one leaked picture and then mull over it for 10 minutes at a time, and this was when he wasn't being sexually weird. Oh yeah, because even when it came to Doctor Who, he couldn't help himself but be a fucking weirdo.
Shave a razor, shave a smooth face. That was one of the best.
Even doing this digging into the Wayback Machine, I found a video description pride and place on the main part of his channel that said the following. More brilliant pictures from, I believe, either episode 3 or 4 of Matt Smith's new Doctor Who. Love the short skirt on Amy Pond, very nice and fetching. It's about time there was something for the fathers as well as the mothers. Lol. I'm not sure if it's this video or perhaps another one from around that time, but I specifically remember one video having a black screen for like 2 minutes, with a very brief image of Karen Gillan being heavily sexualized, with the caption of sexy in default Windows Movie Maker text. I, in an act of self-sacrifice, went looking for the image, traipsing through dozens of obviously fake news of Karen Gillan, because I have integrity, damn it. But you can probably tell at this point why I didn't exactly flock to this guy for Doctor Who content, even as a 15-year-old at this point. I just found his shit juvenile and sad for someone 20 or so years my senior to be doing. Another thing that I hated about his videos, both Doctor Who and otherwise, was the quality of them. He tried these dodgy ass green screen effects, which apparently was on Adobe Premiere and After Effects. Like, Jesus Christ, like how do you fuck it up that bad? It just gave anyone who viewed his videos a headache. He tried to do the Doctor Who opening as an effect, but for the whole video. And as a result, he looked like G-Man from the opening of Half-Life 2, except it was done on the budget of nothing and lasted for about 15 minutes. Another thing that I found kind of funny about Stephen whilst looking back is the stuff that he has in his profile about sitting and face-sitting. In his goddamn profile, he actually lists it as one of his interests and has joined a public group publicly on his big channel, telling everyone that he's got this really weird kink, which he's insisting that YouTube's a business, so pride of place in his business, he's telling people that this is his, like, thing that he likes. Like, it comes across as just really weird. Like, I don't know why you'd do that. Basically, I didn't care for it. His autism content was better, but that was often pushed to the wayside or hijacked due to his stupid petty dramas. There were a lot of stupid and petty dramas, and he never really let any of them go. The most brought up one was his time on the front lines of Yahoo Messenger's Depression Support 3. I can't even recall how many times this bloody chat room came up in his rants, but it felt like it was at least once a day. Basically, Stephen hated everyone in this chat, but frequented it a lot, getting into arguments with blokes, being misogynistic and rude to the women, assuming that he wasn't being sexually inappropriate with them as well. Also, you'd think that he'd understand that depression support is likely going to be full of people with problems, who live less conventional lives, yet this dick insists on shitting on everyone for dumb reasons, like this poor woman who he says isn't very interesting.
I was in the ill-fated chat room, depression support, lack of support free, yesterday, on a new Yahoo beta that you'll be able to see tonight, which incidentally it isn't unbootable because I was booted out of there. Not that I had any protection on, I was actually in there just for a laugh, just to see if they do manage to boot me, you know, on the new one. But anyway, it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed at all, you know. The minute I went in there and I never said a word, there was Spazza Council on the flipping mic. Oh, there's another spastic coming in here, ladies. What the hell's up with him? If anyone's a spaz, it's him. I mean, he actually lives on a boat so he can evade taxes. That's basically it. He lives in the place. I don't think he's worked in like bloody God knows how long. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with him apart from the fact he's a bone idle, stupid gimp. And he is a gimp because that's why he has to flipping well take drugs all the time. You know, to help him, well, from seeing his kids basically. Because he doesn't see his kids because of that, I reckon. But he's a gimp. And sad state of affairs is that they kiss his ass in that room. It's only a small room, there's about 30 people in there. And I am amazed because I used to actually think it bothered me. Bothered me what somebody in friggin' Australia says. Bothered me if somebody in friggin' America says. I don't give a shite. I'm just there to have a laugh. And they take it so seriously in that room, you know. Death threats, all kinds of things. I mean, come on. Grow up. Apple was there, of course. The most intelligent thing she said is about bloody ironing her underwear or something. Which you don't need to bother. I'm sure with her bloody waist it would stretch quite admirably.
What a fucking pompous twat. He says in his profile that he doesn't like bimbos or bints, both of which are quite derogatory terms usually labelled at people that he just simply didn't like. I dislike bimbos and bints. Silly little girls that have low IQ and even lower cleavage when it comes to females. I dislike larger louts when it comes to males. I can't stand show-offs or people who think they are better than others unless they are me. Lol.
Oh.
You know, the fixation on Doctor Who and the weird sexual stuff, the insistence that he's a high IQ intellectual.
Is this on record?
I have a high IQ.
Stephen!
And I love to use it. I like intellectual people like myself.
We just don't let you tell.
Yeah?
Who will argue with rational points instead of, you're a retard.
Me, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just an 18-year-old child, in my opinion, who's just out of nappies. And there's a lot of Doctor Who nerds out there that, you know, will watch anything as long as it's Doctor Who. I used to be one of them, but I've got other things such as sex in my life, you know what I mean?
When they don't get their way. I swear that this guy is basically a British version of Daniel Romano. At least this one is in prison. By the way, I've never heard this cunt say a single intelligent thing in all the times that I've been following his exploits. Not a one.
Can you see the blip there? That naturally shows the wire that's pulling the person. Can you see it, the blip on top? There it is. And that naturally shows it. Now can you see the flipping flag as well? Just happens to be there. And it's not going any. Look at this. I mean, there's no super glue there, is there? There you go, you see? You can see the bloody wires. I mean, come on, you tell me.
Anyway, Depression Support 3 was like it's Vietnam, and I swear to Christ at one point he got into a whiny crying fit over one of his mates taking the piss out of him, and listed Depression Support 3 amongst several other petty internet dramas as if they were fucking World War II battles that he'd survived. Honestly, that is something I would have loved to have archived because that video was amazing.
I'm going to make sure that the whole web knows about this room. Everybody. All the hackers, all the booters, all the worst possible people. Because from now on, your ass is grass. So make sure you put all your names on there. Actually, I tell you what. Dangerous, booty, dangerous colours, site tech, self-indulgence, unsocial. Well, that bloody rings a bell, doesn't it? Eleanor Granger, Fairwinds, Jane Wilson, Lulu's a nice girl, don't touch her. Messenger chat admin, never does anything. OO David OO, decent bloke. Pee-wee teacher, I don't know if she's taught anything in her life. Raven, Aka Jesus or Evil Jesus. A kiss ass. Rolina, don't know her. Ruth, my mate. Shit-faced, obviously a bot. You might want to get rid of it, Yahoo. Yeah, let's start from the beginning, Yahoo. Shitface 111. Oh yeah, and before you think I'm talking bullshit, you fucking wankers, I made it to the top of YouTube on the first fucking page. And I'll make damn sure that this fucking video goes there. Fucking 20 odd people or whatever. You are the biggest bunch of wankers I have ever come across. Listen to him. Listen to Dog's bollocks, everybody. Hey, listen. Dogs, give your fucking address over this room if you reckon you're so hard. Yeah, come on, mate. I did actually say to CT, I actually almost said I was going to put my number in this room because I want to meet him and beat the living shit out of him. Do you understand me? And you. See what they do, everybody? See what they do, you see? They use programs to get the mic. It's as quick as that to get it back. Oh, you know, it's, oh, yeah, whatever, mate, it's not fucking hard. Look, I keep on saying to you, if you've got what it takes... Yeah, if you got what it takes, take me on. Because I'll break every bone in your body. Can you see what Yahoo's coming down to? Google, please buy it, Yahoo. Please buy Yahoo, Google. Please bloody buy Yahoo. For God's sake.
People call this guy a lol cow, and if he were an actual cow, then that would be the moment his udders fucking exploded. There are a few recurring characters that Stephen got into feuds with, like an old lady at Bingo Hall. Another thing that I remember about Stephen is that at one point, he got into this stupid little argument with someone on the internet about him being at this Doctor Who event in the 1980s, and they suggested doubt that he wasn't there. Literally nobody gave a shit but him. So he goes away and digs it out, and it takes him like weeks to prove that he was at this stupid event that literally nobody cares about. This was like the level of obsessed he could get. At one point, someone kept uploading videos of the show Demon Baby mocking his girlfriend's miscarriage. Now don't get me wrong, but this is disgusting and shitty, but anyone with a brain knows that the worst thing you can do to a clout-hungry moron, like Cranium99 for instance, is deprive them of any and all attention. However, Stephen decided to start a flagging campaign, hiring a bunch of bots, and using them to spam the inbox of as many people as he could, trying to get people like me, who had completely stopped giving a shit about his content at that point, because I had O-levels, to watch a shitty stolen video and flag it on behalf of someone who had already been sussed as a shitty nasty little man. This was long after I told Stephen that I wasn't interested in his stupid content and asked to be removed from his mailing list. I mean, I was already subscribed to the cunt, so I didn't need it. In which he just tried to pass the buck onto his then rival, I just subscribed now, also known as King Scribe, also known as The Scribe. By the by, just a disclaimer, I'm getting these PMs from my email inbox, and YouTube's PMs were removed as a feature nearly 10 years ago, so I can't show you my side of the conversation, and I can't remember what I said in response, as I was basically a kid back then. But I'm sure that what I said in response can be pieced together based on Aspergianstar's responses. You don't need proof. Not my fault the scribe has been sending out a list of all his subs or ex-subs. Apparently it's all over the place. You can put this comment on as many of my videos as you like. Sorry, but I can't help you. Your name is on that list that I just subscribed now gave a few people. Get over it. Last I heard, it's on Facebook. Okay, 1. This guy has some of the worst English I've ever seen. And this guy is 40. Seriously. 2. What does he mean by I don't need proof? What a fucking stupid thing to say. If I ask for proof, it means I need proof before I'll believe his bullshit. So, he more or less admitted his guilt here. Okay, thanks. 3. It's funny that I haven't heard hide nor hair of this supposed list since Stephen went to jail. And I haven't heard from King Scribe since then either. Also, you know that my name is on that list, and I don't like that. So why are you using it? I can't be the only one that doesn't want this shit. 4. Who has a track record of using bots to inflate numbers and do their dirty work? Oh yeah, it was you! Yes, okay, you had me banged to rights. I had a list sent to me that was taken from I just subscribed now. Not sure if he gave the list or if he was hacked, but it has every single member on his channel. So you're using bots to do your dirty work again? Why would King Scribe make this list and then not send me anything? I wonder. I was not the creator of the list. The list was given to me in an email, and I am sure others have it. Then his crazy bitch wife sends me this shit about the miscarried baby using the same mailing list.
This video makes fun of a dead baby. Please flag it. Also check out I Just Subscribe Now, as we're sure that this is his house in the video.
Spoiler alert, it's not.
And he is the one making the video in the first place. He is sick and must be taken down. He finds it funny to make fun of a dead baby and also a woman who lost her other children.
So it turns out, as I said earlier, that it has nothing to do with I Just Subscribed Now. And the video was actually a popular internet show about a demon baby puppet. Which is disgusting of Stephen to accuse King Scribe of doing that with literally no evidence. Bear in mind that these two were friends who had a bit of a falling out, and less than a month later, Stephen's pulling this shit, accusing him of data harvesting when Stephen was the one doing it and accusing him of mocking his dead baby. Also, I'm even more insulted by this shit in hindsight given what he did to the kids in his care. Quite frankly, in hindsight, That kid dodged a fucking bullet. To clarify, I reached out to I Just Subscribe Now, who was on good terms with me back then, more or less, and I asked him if he knew anything about the list. Again, my comments and reply have been lost to the ether, but again, you can probably piece together what was said. I don't even have a list. I do have a subscribers list, which all YouTube have, but I don't have a memory of a list at all. And I keep my subscribers hidden so that they don't get flooded with spam. Of course, these things can be a guess in a close community like this. I don't spam people at all though. I only occasionally do write a post to the community, but very rarely, and certainly not every video. If you see my videos, you'll know what I mean. I don't know what he means. Maybe I did back then, but I don't remember if I did. I honestly do believe King Scribe over Steven, given that King Scribe is a normal functioning human being and not a fucking psychopath. But if anyone wants to go enlightened centralist on me, go right ahead. I remember how our exchanges ended though. I told Steven that I was putting my foot down about the annoying spam messages, and said that there would be consequences for him ignoring my request. Steven said, "It's not on me, so do what you will with your consequences." I wonder if Steven will ever find this video. I wonder if he'll ever click that this is the consequence that I spoke of all those years ago. You see, unlike some, I have a long-term memory. A fucking good one for shit like this. So I have to ask, if that wall-eyed vegetable sees this, was it worth it, Steven? Was your little mailing list that you tried to pawn off on King Scribe, like you tried to pawn off your bots onto Mr. Tardis, worth this? Somehow, I doubt it. So, when did it sour between Steven and I? When did I go from fan with a positive disposition to someone who looked down on him with utter contempt? Well, that question can be answered by taking a look at our next segment. At this point, I was beginning to notice a bit of a trend with our little friend. Every few weeks, he'd make an angry video directed at someone. Sometimes I'd find it agreeable that the person was doing something a bit shitty, though it was rare that Steven supplied evidence and instead just filmed his face and expected us to just go along with it. One day, I noticed that he had a bit of a problem with a Mr. Tardis Reviews, a then 18-year-old amateur reviewer of Doctor Who, sci-fi and other nerdy shit. He also does some punditry, commentating on things that he finds interesting. I find him to be a very talented guy who offers a lot of interesting and well thought out opinions, which I don't always agree with, but I at least see where he's coming from. He started out around the time that I started out, and whilst I clearly dwarf him with my success, I'm really happy for the guy that he's managed to get such a large following and a presence in the industry. Trust me, he's worked hard for it and he deserves it. At the time though, his channel was a bit like mine. It was small and a lot less known. So all I could do was watch the offending video in question and see what I could deduce was wrong from what was said and done. The gist of what this horrible excuse of a human did? What did this man who now resembles Oxhorn do to earn the ire of the righteous Aspergianstar2009? He reviewed Doctor Who with clips. Yeah, I wish I was kidding, but this feud was legitimately that fucking stupid. I mean, I praise anyone who uses clips from a BBC show after the nightmares I've had over the BBC practically breaking my videos with copyright strikes and not knowing a single thing about fair use. However, Steven is one of those morons that doesn't understand how copyright law works. Which is fine, a lot of people are stupid and don't know how copyright law works. Except, most of those people typically don't open their cake socket and play YouTube police ranting at people about how them doing their legally protected job is illegal. You see, Mr. Tardis uses a fair use format a bit like my own. He discusses the subject matter and uses a lot of clips in the video to establish what he's talking about, either to illustrate his point or just to give his audience something nicer to look at than this. Jesus fucking Christ. Stephen insisted that any use of Doctor Who footage was bad, and anyone who did it was bad, regardless of context. This is something that he'd later go back on and would even do himself because Stephen Gandy. This was another thing that Stephen did, by the way. He'd play White Knight Crusader for the BBC. I don't know why, as he didn't represent them in any official capacity, but anyone who criticised the Beeb or its shows got his wrath, despite the fact that the BBC is a big boy that can look after itself and cares fuck all about random critics on the internet, and probably gives fuck all about delusional paedophiles with a saviour complex. Needless to say, Mr. Tardis schooled Stephen to hell and back, mopping the floor with him. Sadly, this video has long since been deleted, as have all but one of the Aspergianstar related videos on Mr. Tardis's channel. This is more than fair enough for reasons I'll get into later. Mr. Tardis also criticised Stephen's channel, severely hurting his pride and giving him a perma burn on his anus that would bother him for the rest of his days. What's really sad about it is that Mr. Tardis's assessment of his channel was more than accurate and very, very fair. Stephen was making very little effort in his editing, pacing, scripting, and anything really. His production method was just pushing record and talking shite into equipment that was substandard. This was not uncommon in 2008 when he first started, but by this point he had 10,000 subs and had been doing this for nearly 3 years at this point. If you want a comparison, by 2017 I'd already upgraded my mic and video editing software so that I could make better videos and not sound like I was talking into tinfoil. I've invested a fair bit of money into my channel because I have some fucking pride in it, and I don't care if I ever see a return on my investment financially. Stephen, like a lot of hacks, was low effort and made no effort to grow or improve, but got genuinely offended at criticism, especially valid criticism that he knew was true but couldn't do much about it. Well, besides listen to it and take it on board. A few things happened between then and Christmas, which I unfortunately don't remember. I don't even think I was paying attention at that point. Not to Stephen at least. I'd already subbed to Mr. Tardis at this point and found his content infinitely better because, well, he didn't have a black screen for 5 minutes with a Google picture of Karen Gillan in the middle of it for a start. However, the best part of this drama, the bit that I recall the most, that happened around Christmas and New Year of 2010 going into 2011. A fuck awful television show was dropped on our laps named Come Fly With Me on Christmas Day. A show that looked so shit I didn't watch it at the time. My parents watched it and readily admitted that I'd made the right choice, as it was one of the worst things that they'd ever seen. It was unfunny, dismal, offensive, predictable, and given that its creators couldn't do much with an entire world to make fun of, confining them to an airport was probably the worst thing they could have done at the time. Mr. Tardis made a review reminiscent of a Channel Awesome video demonstrating this, and it strangely got the attention of Aspergianstar2009, who must have been glued to Mr. Tardis's channel for some time now. Honestly, you can tell that Mr. Tardis's words burn in the black of his soul. If you go back to his archived snap of his old YouTube channel, you can even see there's a subtle reference to Mr. Tardis, where he talks about not liking kids who think they're top shit on YouTube and mean to tell everyone else about their business. Of course, that role's reversed for divorced, middle-aged, whiny-voiced pedo crybabies. Wow. Just wow. Over the last few months, Chemerblinker has been constantly throwing abuse at me in his videos. I've never in my entire life seen arguments so consistently flawed and completely lacking in intelligence and logic. If I was to respond to those videos, then this video would be dozens of hours long picking through every single flaw in his arguments. But because it's only so much trolling the world can take, this video is just a response to his latest video to my review of Come Fly With Me. Not only does he start this off with a pathetic insult, but he comes across as incoherent and not having a clue as to what he's on about.
Oh, Tardis.
The pauses in which he has to come up with what he's saying are painful to sit through. The quality of the audio sounds like shit. Which, I know that Mr. Tardis doesn't sound amazing, but he doesn't have a static buzz going on in the back, so, you know, he has the high ground on this one. Also, this is 2011, and small YouTubers rarely had good audio back then. And the video is very beige, and looks like it was filmed through a glory hole. Yet this wanker feels like he's in a position to criticise anyone. He also felt a need to fucking school everyone on who Matt Lucas and David Williams are, with an explanation that's both overly explained and yet lacking in information.
David Williams and Lucas are geniuses. They basically made a third-rate comedy on BBC Three, an amazing success called Little Britain. There's been Little Britain Abroad, there's been Little Britain USA.
Okay, who cares? What does it have to do with Come Fly With Me?
It's based on an airport, therefore everything that you see there, it sort of limits the amount of jokes that can be stifled out of an airport.
I don't think I've ever seen a lecture so inept in all my life. And I attended university. His argument was, well, a lot of people liked it, so therefore, it's good. And hilariously, I was going to make a joke about Transformers 2 being one of the highest grossing films of all time, but Mr. Tardis makes the point for me.
The critics didn't like it, but the viewers did.
Oh God. Only one person who liked the show has actually told me what they liked about it. One person out of over 3,000 people who have watched my review. The rest either agreed with me or told me that they liked it. And that was it. Why can only one person tell me why this show was good? Why does everyone have to say, you don't have a sense of humour, or Come Fly With Me rules, shut the fuck up? If you like the show, fine, I don't have a problem with that, but it absolutely astounds me that only one person has been able to tell me what they specifically like about the show.
It's viewers that count. It's the viewers that make the money for the BBC.
Yes, while you are correct that the viewing ratings were high, and that the show probably made a lot of money because of the advertising revenue and everything, that doesn't automatically make it a good show. Reviews of television shows come out after the show has finished broadcasting, especially with comedy, so the audience has nothing to go on other than the marketing campaign for the show, adverts and coverage from television guides. That is what brings the audience in. 10 million people tuned in to watch Come Fly With Me because of that campaign. That doesn't automatically make it a good show. In fact, the audience appreciation index for the show was low, so a sizable portion of the audience didn't like the show. The BBC received many complaints from viewers because they felt the programme was racist, and to top it all off, the next episode of Come Fly With Me a week later had lost a huge portion of its viewership because they didn't like the programme and they didn't tune in the next week. Just because Vampires Suck makes more money than Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, does that make Vampires Sucks a better movie? No. Just because Transformers 2 is one of the highest grossing movies of all time, does that make it better than District 9 or The Hurt Locker combined? No. Just because the show got a large viewership doesn't mean that the audience specifically liked it, and it doesn't automatically make it a good show.
He then proceeds to say that you aren't allowed to criticise things because whiny people might get upset. Oh, and he threw a clumsy allegation trying to make out that Mr. Tardis concocted a bizarre conspiracy theory about him and some other trolls, which turned out to be a pile of steaming horse shit, as Mr. Tardis very well explains. He also cries because Mr. Tardis doesn't like Fred, which, given what he says, it's pretty funny because the guy who plays Fred has more or less suppressed those years out of his head, like you would with any childhood trauma. So I guess hindsight's a bitch once again. Oh, and then Mr. Tardis brings up his abusive comments and Charlie is so cool-like, which is more or less fitting with Stephen's shitty actions and a great example of this dick blowing himself up. Stephen then cries because Mr. Tardis has veered away from Doctor Who at this point, which I don't know why that's a bad thing, but whatever. He then says a line that's pathetically childish but has very dark undertones when he says, "I've got better things such as sex in my life."
And there's a lot of Doctor Who nerds out there that, will watch anything as long as it's Doctor Who. I used to be one of them, but I've got other things such as sex in my life, you know what I mean?
Chima, you're not the next John Holmes. You are not the only person who has sex.
Given what he did, that's, yeah. Also, nice dismissing of people who aren't interested in sex, you absolute fuck dump. Oh, and then he tells him to go back to doing films like 2 minutes after he told him not to do films anymore. He then insists that we can't criticise the BBC because they have more experience than anybody else, so they clearly never make mistakes. Oh, and then he resorts to ageism, shitting on Mr. Tardis because he's 18. And 18-year-olds can't possibly know what they're talking about.
You know what I mean? You don't know what you're talking about. You're just an 18-year-old child, in my opinion, who's just out of nappies.
Right. How old are you again? 40? Yeah, insults like that were considered stupid by the time I left primary school. In all seriousness here, do you honestly have nothing better to do with your time than to mess around with the mind of an 18-year-old amateur critic? I can tell that I must be on your mind a lot, because of the fact that you've been following my Come Fly With Me review, and actually giving negative commenters a pat on the back for their comments.
This video ends interestingly, as Mr. Tardis backs what I was saying with some good examples about him using bots to artificially grow his channel, and he apparently bullfacedly admitted it at the time. This is going to play a bit of a part in what's coming next, but I'll get through this video first.
You set up fake accounts to subscribe to you, and to comment and flag my videos, and you've been buying viewers, and don't say that you haven't, because A, you admitted it. You said on your channel that you've been doing this. You say that you've been buying views, setting up dozens and hundreds of accounts to spam my videos and to subscribe to you and only you. Because, well, you said that YouTube is a business. It's not a business. It really isn't. And B, the evidence is there, clear as day. If you go on his Fred impersonating video and you look at the channels that has been made with nearly all of those comments, you'll see that those channels have subscribed to only him, has liked only his videos, has commented only on his videos, and was set up on the day that he made those comments. You're not even trying to hide it. You've repeated the same comment like a dozen times. You're not even trying to hide it. You accuse me of copying you, despite the fact that our reviews couldn't be any more different. Yours are unscripted and to the camera. Mine, a while ago when you accused me of copying, they were scripted, and they were just my audio with actual clips when you didn't use any clips. They couldn't be any more different. But to top it all off, you've spent half of your time copying me. I do single father, oh look, you do single father, and on those single father reviews you plagiarized other reviews on the internet. You copied and pasted those reviews into the video description. You copied those people. You weren't even trying to hide it. I do a Doctor Who review with clips, you do a Doctor Who review with clips, after specifically criticizing me for doing reviews with clips. I do paranormal activity, you do paranormal activity. Oh wait, you did paranormal activity too. That's so different. I actually feel a bit guilty because I've taken up so much of your time on YouTube, and that you've pretty much devoted an entire channel to try and troll me. But hypothetically speaking, let's say that you didn't admit that you've paid to bump up your viewers, and that you haven't created hundreds upon hundreds and hundreds of accounts to make it seem like you've actually got real users subscribing to you. You know what? I wouldn't give a toss. I'm on YouTube to express my opinion, entertain people, and to practice making movies with no budget and limited resources. I love what I'm doing, and I love the fact that hundreds of others like my videos and are interested about what I have to say about television and movies. It's not a competition, and in the world of YouTube, age isn't a hindrance and isn't a valid reason for not liking someone's content. If you don't like my videos, fine. It's not like we have to sit next to each other in a maths lesson, or that we're living on the same street. This is the internet. No one is forcing you to keep an eye on my channel 24/7. You can just pretend that I don't exist and move on, which is what I've been trying to do for you, but like a baby craving attention, you whine and moan when you don't get what you want, and I feel like I've got to come back to your channel to shove a dummy in your mouth in the hopes that you'll stop crying. Stop spamming my YouTube. Stop spamming my friends' YouTubes. Stop constantly talking about me 24/7, and maybe you can get on with your own life instead of caring so much about mine.
Now that was an impressive way to end the video. So impressive you'd think our boy Steve would take a fucking hint. But no, that only escalated things. If you were to look back now, you'd think that this was the end of it, but no. It was the beginning of a week-long back and forth that ended gloriously. You see, again, Mr. Tardis had rumbled Aspergianstar2009 on his pathetic fake sub-scam. In fact, he observed that the bots commenting on him were clearly fucking robots, and his views didn't match up to his subscriber count. Aspergianstar then did the smartest thing he could do when faced with an allegation that you know is true. He made a video response demanding proof. Mr. Tardis delivered. He found a website that supplied YouTube bots, and Aspergianstar had registered for it, using one of his YouTube names, and had clearly made several links to his Aspergianstar2009 account. However, Stephen is a crafty little fox, and after this was exposed in a video, complete with his screen caps, Stephen got to work on damage control by changing his name and profile picture on the site to make it look like it was Mr. Tardis' subbot account. Yes, this was really his next course of action. I have a high IQ.
Stephen!
And I love to use it. I like intellectual people like myself.
Will you just not let yourself?
Because he honestly believed that this was some big brain shit, despite it not being overwhelmingly obvious what he wanted us to think. I can think of several stupid possibilities, don't get me wrong, but I haven't a clue which one, if any, he was going for. After days of this bullshit, Aspergianstar2009 was fully exposed as a sub-botting liar pants, and worse than that, he was exposed as a fucking idiot. I can't remember if I was even subbed to him at this point, but you can bet your ass that I was unsubbed by the end of this shit. What a fucking smeglord. The funny part is that Mr. Tardis wasn't going after Aspergianstar2009. He only responded when he was commented on. It reminds me of that Doctor Who story from Big Finish where the scavengers are trying to blow up the 8th Doctor and he uses their force field to reflect their damage back at them, and they keep shooting because they're fucking stupid. It's like that, only Aspergianstar2009 fucking knew that this was going to happen and kept doing it anyway. Aspergianstar then decided, retroactively, that he wasn't happy about Mr. Tardis using his image, and said that it was a legal matter now. However, I don't think he followed this up in any real capacity. I mean, you can't really make a response video that's good without showing the original video. I'd like to say that this is where that idiocy ended, but unfortunately, Stephen felt a need to go on the offensive. According to this report on cyberbullying.com, our boy got very busy after this point. Hello. For a year and a half, I've been creating videos on youtube.com, and it has been an incredibly enjoyable experience. However, for almost a year, I've been bullied, threatened, and abused by one user called Aspergianstar2009. For an entire year, he has sent me death threats, has posted my address and phone number online. I have no idea how he got this information, has spammed my account so people don't watch my videos, and has even taken my account down at one point. I have reported him to YouTube dozens upon dozens of times, but no action has been taken. Fucking shocker. And quite frankly, I'm sick of it. I have reported him to another cyberbullying prevention website, but they just told me to ignore him. I have been ignoring him for months, yet he continues to make videos, harass my other friends on YouTube, and post death threats in his videos. It's not just me he's been bullying though. He once made a death threat video to another user who's mentally disabled and had just lost their only son. He has sent bullying videos to children and has even posted a picture of his penis online. And adding insult to injury is the fact that YouTube has made him a partner. This means that whenever he makes a video, YouTube puts adverts on it, and he gets a share of the revenue. So, he has no reason to stop making these offensive videos, as he is getting paid for them. Recently, he has been making videos saying that he's going to come to where I live and beat me up and film it. He does have my address after all. I have honestly had enough of this person. I'm sick of him being able to do all of this and not only get away with it, but get paid for it. Please tell me what I can do, or if there is any way you can take action against him and get him off the internet, where he can stop causing so much damage to people. Jesus Christ. I mean, it's nice to see that YouTube's always been pro-pedo, but Jesus. This is where you see the transition from whiny internet lolscow to a fucking horrible psychotic piece of shit. This is what he does to someone who makes videos talking about their opinions on Doctor Who because they do it better than him and they smelled bullshit the second they saw him. Stephen was obsessed with this guy. Even in May, 5 months after this shit show went down, he was still making podcasts about Mr. TARDIS like it happened yesterday. This highlighted pretty well in the Scribe's blog post from the 16th of May 2011, which shows people think that trust is a given thing. And friends do break trust and are mean to each other every once in a while. But true friends don't dictate what you do, how you do it, and say, well, if you're mates with my competition, then you're no mate of mine. Here is someone who I know not to trust. Yes, I have been mean to him only after he backstabbed all of his friends and created lies about almost every one of them. Aspergianstar2009. This video is unavailable. I have to admit that I was looking forward to Steve's reaction to Mr. Tardis Reviews getting a type of partnership. But what I've heard in his podcast about his friends is beyond the joke. Aspergianstar2009 spends mountains of time talking about one particular YouTuber, Mr. Tardis Reviews. Almost every single podcast video and rant has his name in it. Talk about being obsessive. I was shocked when I realised to what extent Steve's OCD with Mr. Tardis Reviews goes. After many videos, I started to become concerned that perhaps Steve needs to drop his attacks on Mr. Tardis Reviews and Sparky Gerbil. Video is not available. The above video is actually a classical sign of an online stalker, and it may be fun to watch for some of us, but I think it's disgusting. I gave him friendly advice, tips on improving his online content and page presentation, told him to drop the feuds and do what he does best, talking about his passions. Instead, I notice that whenever I talk to him nowadays, there's an air of aggression about him. I think that he thinks that I don't notice, but I do, and I simply don't trust him. Quite recently, yesterday, I was speaking to Steve, and all he did was try and redirect, steer and guide the conversation into the realm of Mr. Tardis Reviews. Because I try to steer the conversation into different directions, he becomes irritable. It's like his friendship is based on one sole purpose, his own criteria. Steve's friendship is based on narcissistic factors. You must talk nastily about Mr. Tardis Reviews in every single discussion with him. If you don't, he'll try to steer you there. You must agree with everything he does. If you don't, he'll get defensive and attack you. Steve's idea of trust is a dictatorship. Technically, the trust he's giving you isn't that of a real friend, but a control freak.
I'm now off to obsess about an 18-year-old YouTube blogger. It's okay, I'm only 29. If I were older, that would be really pathetic. The following segment was written entirely by Welshie. No harm is intended unless you happen to be a YouTube blogger who's obsessed with an 18-year-old YouTube blogger, in which case you'll understand this was directed at you. Tardis, seriously?
Bravo, Welshie. Welshie, bravo.
I'm incredibly glad that Mr. Tardis got away from this because, frankly, it sounded like a nightmare, especially when you aren't even in your 20s. He's a decent guy and deserved a fuck ton better, and he's thankfully doing great now. It got to a certain point that this stuff died down, at least publicly. However, Stephen was by no means docile during this time. He was constantly starting petty squabbles with other people, and would often insist that anybody who had beef with him should meet up with him in a pub car park for a brawl. It was funny because he made fun of people who threw down that proverbial gauntlet in his YouTube bio, but did it himself all the time. Honestly, I wasn't paying attention to a lot of these dramas. As I said, I'd unsubbed at this point, but something brought me back. I can't remember what it was. This was a long ass time ago, but I do remember bearing witness to this particular debacle, and in all honesty, I felt it was worth bringing up. The second biggest feud that I witnessed was with a user known as I Just Subscribe Now, who later rebranded as King Scribe and has since settled on The Scribe. If I were to describe The Scribe, that was a weird sentence admittedly, but if I was to describe him, I'd say that he's somewhere between pundit and troll, leaning more to the impish, mischievous side of the latter. Now, the Scribe is kind of like the Vegeta of this story, assuming that Steve is like a paedophile Goku. I've never watched My Hero Academia before, so I don't really know what any of that means, but that's the picture I'm trying to paint. But if Aspergianstar2009 was the hero of this story, then the Scribe would be more the antagonist than the villain. The two had a somewhat genuine friendship at times, and I think that Stephen's antics amused the Scribe more than anything, except when they went too far as shown earlier. And eventually I'm sure the whole thing just wore on his patience and he stopped seeing it as funny at all. The Scribe made a great video on Stephen around the time of his conviction, which was unfortunately deleted some time ago, either by the Scribe or maybe YouTube deleted it. I don't know, I wasn't paying attention at that point. However, it summed up Stephen very well, and I hope that this video can come close to replacing it. The only thing from around that time that has survived is the Scribe's blog, which serves as a sort of diary of things that were happening around the time. Videos were provided to be used as sources, but all of them without exception have been deleted by now. Like I said, the evidence has faded with time. The earliest post, chronologically, is Dumb and Dumber, in which a little YouTube spat turned ugly. Just when I thought someone couldn't get any dumber, I was shocked, slightly amused, actually it gave me the chuckles, and puzzled when I realised how easily someone found it to manipulate Steve. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragically sad that a 40-year-old is being told things by a 15-year-old troll, and then taking this to be fact. Not that I have anything against 15-year-old people, just that these two are obviously trying to stir it up. Now, at this point, these gross people were merely a minor annoyance and a bit of a laughingstock for the Scribe. However, that quickly changes over the course of a month, and things get a bit personal. It's interesting to note that Emma was one of the people responsible for those miscarriage videos that I got spammed to fuck 'em back over, yet here Chima is being all buddy-buddy with her. This changed as those messages were sent to me around 2012 in January. Funny how right the Scribe was about these fucking people. This drama also involves P-Brain, who's better known as Indispensable P-Guy. From what I've heard, this guy has his own internet history, though I'm not really as interested in it, but he has a Kiwifarms thread of his own, because of course he does. Crazy month on YouTube. Before I lay into this blog, I will admit that I find Aspergianstar2009 Doctor Who videos dull, and just about acceptable for YouTube. No wonder you don't have partnership. Anyway, I know you guys openly enjoy licking out each other's butter cheeks in every comment, PM and video. I will state that at least Gaystar, Chris, P-Brain and his glue-sniffing friend Zane Archives don't hide behind a keyboard like a bunch of pansies. If you're going to make offensive remarks, at least be brave enough to show your face. This video is unavailable. Did anyone forget what Breakbeat Kev said? Many months ago he directed me directly at you, P-Brain. After a discussion about who started the war between Aspergianstar and Mr. Tardis Reviews. You didn't fool Breakbeat Kev, boy. He suspected you for a muppet a long time ago. He even removed you from his Facebook after seeing that you had formed a special relationship with your boyfriend Chris. I don't think you or Chris ever had been in a war together, just pretending for the lols. I also don't think any of your accounts that you claim to be Emma are actually hers, you sad gits. This video is unavailable. Aspergianstar2009 acting like the prat again, no surprise there. I didn't want to respond to this video because I've been trying to put some common sense into his ego. I showed him what his new best friend had done to his oldest, most loyal friend on YouTube. That's the way it goes 09. Did he give a damn? No. And I think you can guess, because Aspergianstar2009 only cares about himself, and if he's sulking about someone telling him off, then he'll turn on them. Notice how quickly Steve and Ryan turned on their friend. Also notice how Steve gets aggressive and irritated by anyone with a small amount of success on YouTube. This is unfair because it takes a lot of hard work to put up videos. This video is unavailable. I want everyone who reads my blog to watch the above video very carefully. I wish I could. Notice how a relationship has been built up over a long time with That's the Way It Goes 09, myself and Aspergianstar2009. He even tells me off in a PM about the feud, but I don't turn against him. But Aspergianstar does. What type of person does that sort of thing? So, Aspergianstar2009 has made some new friends. Wahey! Friends who troll, attack, tell lies and are the biggest backstabbers on the internet. Here's one of Aspergianstar2009's new friends. People. Wahey! This video is unavailable. Thanks for calling Chemerblinker, who is Aspergianstar2009, a liar. This is plainly obvious. Then again, Chris, you're still a fruitcake. Your messages, videos and blogs are practically senseless to anyone who's reading them. Completely boring and irrelevant waffle about what? Who knows? This video is unavailable. Here he is claiming victory over everyone he trolls, including Aspergianstar2009. Has been Chemerblinker. Let's not forget Gaystar, that he and Emma were the ones who set up Chemawatch, and were very intrusive in your private life. I, if you remember correctly, was one of the few people who defended you from the likes of those fruitcakes. I've had a few crazy comments on my channel by some people who I now know collectively and call them fruitcakes, and if anyone needs an explanation as to what I mean by this, then they need to study the English language a bit more. Don't you, P-Brain? Check for metaphor in your dictionary, Chris and Ryan. Aspergianstar2009 is an obvious troll, and is taking sides with his fellow trolls. There is an old saying, birds of a feather flock together. Crap always finds other crap, just like in the sewers. Here is what his new best friend posted up on the internet. This video is unavailable. If Aspergianstar2009 is reading this blog, then do yourself a favour and disassociate yourself from P-Brain. This stuff is completely unacceptable, especially by YouTube standards. If you don't, then it just proves that you only care about yourself and your own interest. Selfishness is not good. If you choose to be like this, then bye for life. Stupid PMs that contain no substance. Apparently, Aspergianstar2009 and his buddies seem to enjoy posting weak evidence up on YouTube. The backstabbing doesn't make sense simply because the dates don't match up to when the feud started, in case everyone forgot those. The above video was recorded and put on YouTube on the 29th of April, in which he openly makes racist comments about people he assumes are in my family, and says nasty things about an unborn child. He makes a number of assumptions in this video, even though he knows very little about me. What an a-hole.
This video makes fun of a dead baby. Please flag it. Also check out I Just Subscribe Now, as we're sure that this is his house in the video.
Spoiler alert, it's not.
And he is the one making the video in the first place. He is sick and must be taken down. He finds it funny to make fun of a dead baby and also a woman who lost her other children.
Right, so that's kind of interesting because Aspergianstar was crying about someone making fun of a miscarriage. Meanwhile, he's mocking somebody else's unborn kid. Okay, fucking dick. This isn't the first time he's done something this hypocritical, by the way. He spent years crying about sexual harassment in the workplace, and then he went and did what he did, so who the fucking knows anymore?
I've been bullied in the workplace. I've been sexually harassed in the workplace. At local government level, you wouldn't even believe it. By somebody of 40. Female of 40. Who decided to say, well, you're a man, prove it then. And a lot of, men will probably be listening to this now and say, oh, I wish I'd have been there, son, I'd have been in there. You've never been in my situation, so shut up. You really haven't. It isn't like that. It's the lack of control. If you go out and you ask a woman out, you've got control. And if she accepts, it's great. You're on mutual ground. And if she doesn't, then you walk away. You do not carry on harassing her. And the same goes for a woman and a man. Why is it that people think that men should find it a compliment if a woman is attracted to them and keeps on trying to harass them at work, and yet it's a crime if a woman gets harassed at work for a similar situation?
He's a typical example of an Andrew-level narcissist. He just seems to think that he's God and literally nobody's allowed to do anything to him, but he can treat people how he wants. This video is unavailable. Let's not forget the above video, which is unavailable, in which he blocks me because he hears something that P-Brain whispered in his ear and got all huffy and upset about it. 15-year-olds owning him by telling him what others are saying about him. Pathetic. Apparently in a Skype conference with Mr. Tardis Reviews, I was saying very bad things about Steve. If this was the case, then where are your recordings, Chris and Ryan? This video is unavailable. This video made me make a post. I found Aspergianstar2009's comments about people in my life completely unacceptable. It's not that I care, only he's supposed to be a friend. If you watch this, you hear him say all kinds of stupid things about my family. I don't put up with that, Steve, and I've never said bad things about yours. But you keep on making your stupid videos slating me. Is this acceptable to anyone who isn't a complete loser in life? It's not. It really isn't. I'm assuming that if you were telling Aspergianstar2009 about me backstabbing him in a conference in which you were listening, you would easily have been able to hit the record button. But you couldn't, because you had nothing there to record, except your own childish imagination. You know what I think, Ryan? I may as well tell Steve that Mark has been saying this and that, and Steve is too dumb not to fall for it. Honestly, the best you guys can come up with are schoolyard tactics, and Aspergianstar2009, you believe that stuff. Haven't you grown up since leaving school to learn how to spot a troublemaker? I'm just telling you the way it is. If you're too foolish to listen, then that just shows how ignorant you are. This video is unavailable. P-Brain and his mates couldn't own me by using proper evidence from a recording of a Skype call in which they told Steve about bad things that I said about him. So instead, you and your mates, Chris and Ryan, came up with one of the most ridiculous strawman arguments for desperation of an ownage. This video is unavailable. I can't be bothered to look up at the PMs again, because they are only criticising Aspergianstar2009 and P-Brain, who I think are both losers on YouTube. You could have gotten better, more insulting things thrown at them in my blog, but anyone reading those PMs should realise that they don't hold any real substance, and I'm bored of trying to defend things that are really only being commented on by Chris's friends, Ryan and Aspergianstar2009's sock puppet accounts, of which there are 80 that he's admitted to. Jesus fucking Christ. He's starting to give Ronnie Vane a run for his money. No wonder I lost a few subs when he decided to turn on me. He is crying, methinks, lol. However, for the trolls out there, I no longer pay attention to subscribers, so keep trying. I will find out which of the subscriptions are you, Chris, in time. Speaking of OCD, in which they tried to demonize me, there is a video that P-Brain did for me. Thank you very much. Making all sorts of crazy statements in it, really just showing what a complete and utter moron he is. Wahey. Even though I snorted with laughter listening to him threatening me. In one video he had his glue sniffer friend clapping, and even made a cameo appearance in one of his videos. Well done, this in itself is a self-ownage. Lastly, Robbie12345UK, just shut up already. Stop moaning about being blocked on YouTube. That's what happens when you're a troll with no real life muppet. The feud ended for a while, but picked up again in 2012, which seems about right to be honest from what I can remember. Less than a year later, King Scribe declares that he's won again after Aspergianstar2009 shat himself. Alright, so I've had a really good smirk on YouTube over the past year, and a right old chuckle about certain trolls, especially Asper. I've been riding the trolls good and hard. You could take that out of context. Unmasking liars and frauds, and those who are just plain old nuts. Asper even created a loss for emotional ransom on YouTube after seeing the effect on super cool Sparky Gerbil's channel. Charming anyway, this video is unavailable. Aspergianstar2009 has been making video after video just whinging about one YouTuber after another, like an old woman. Here he tests his luck with his gloriously stupendous anti-troll, The Scribe, who has recently been replaced by the ascended King Scribe, after a bit of a struggle. I see the peasant has also changed his thumbnail to represent King Scribe in all his glory. What I actually think about him and his friend. Anyone who has viewed my channel and his will know that we've had a lot of wars in the past on YouTube that escalated into us both parting the ways. If you have viewed his channel, you will know that half his videos are literally mocking or complaining about others, and now he's being victimized. He even went after a young person who had hurt his feelings on another channel after a very brief encounter. Asper went on a good old rant, complaining non-stop in this 10-minute video response to a single comment that it takes no genius left on his other trolling channel. What has people laughing about this drama is that whenever some random user leaves a negative comment on his channel that has him in tears, he then makes a 10 to 30 minute rampage. This says a number of things, and it also states that he's an attention seeker, as these commenters were literally few and far between. In other words, he doesn't get many actual views or people commenting on his channel, other than the same trolls. Aspergianstar2009 has continued to use a miscarriage to fuel his channel for promotion and for trolling others, in which he squeals constantly that people are mocking him about it, when they aren't. Many people, including myself, know what a miscarriage feels like and how it temporarily affects life, but we don't use it as weaponry. Unfortunately, he has to use this as a promotional tool for his channel, and as you can see, we've had that happen to me as well. Why did I originally subscribe to his channel? At the time, I was really into Doctor Who, and it appeared that he was too. Although his videos were pretty dull, he talked about my favourite TV programme and would even reply to my comments. I subscribed because even though his ability in front of the cameras were rather awkward, and he lacked social skills, I appreciated his shortcomings and gave him that magical sub. In truth, his videos were barely acceptable even by vlogging terms, and has no connection with camera and viewer. It was like he was reading a script. Conclusion. If life on YouTube is getting you down and you're even bickering with your family like an old bag on the internet, perhaps it's time you had a short break. I suggested to Aspergianstar2009, instead of whinging and whining like some old woman, perhaps a short break is in order. Go to Blackpool, have fun with the family, and stop taking internet feuds, if we can even call them feuds, so seriously. It wasn't too far into 2012 that Stephen closed his channel down. It's worth mentioning that Stephen was the equivalent of one of those 14-year-old girls that quits Facebook 15 times a month. You know, the ones that close accounts, open new accounts, suspend their accounts, leave forever and come back less than 24 hours later. Attention whore, I think that's the word I was looking for. This is actually why his account is gone. It was deleted just shortly before his arrest. Some have speculated that this was to hide the evidence, but I personally reckon that the simpler explanation is that he was midway through one of his stupid little fits and just didn't get a chance to put the channel back up. I honestly feel like the feud is particularly relevant to the video because of the nature of their relationship. The scribe was a friend to Aspergianstar2009 at several points during this whole feud, and yet he was treated so goddamn horribly at several points. Also, I have no idea where to put this, but something's been bugging the hell out of me. If you go on twitter.com/Chemer2010, you'll notice that there's some sort of group account founded by Stephen, but it was later used by the scribe and some other people for years to come. Which is odd because it still had the name and profile picture of a convicted paedophile, so I wonder if it's a bot? It posted a fuck ton almost every day for about 6 years, and the timing of its stopping was around 2016, when I imagine most of his stuff got scrubbed out. Honestly, it responded to some people, so I have no idea what's going on with that. In April 2012, I believe, Stephen Gandy and Annette Story, his wife, were arrested and stood trial in August of 2013. Gandy was found guilty of 2 accounts of sexual assault, 7 offences involving indecent images of children, prohibited images, and extreme porn. His partner, Annette, admitted to 1 count of sexual assault on a girl under 13. Gandy was sentenced to 4 years in prison, and Story was given a 36-month community order. The pair had taken images of themselves abusing the youngster, which were found when police raided their Elbow Street home in April. Child abuse investigators also found extreme pornographic images on a videotape belonging to Stephen Gandy. Both he and Annette were slapped onto the sex offenders register and have been given a 10-year sexual offences prevention order. Needless to say that neither of them are allowed to work with children anymore. And yes, whilst the article mentions a Detective Inspector Chris Hansen, I can assure you that it isn't that one. Oh yeah, him and his wife actually preyed upon a child and had indecent images. According to Hales Owen News, were ranked at level 5, which is defined on consultjustice.gov.uk as sadism or penetration of or by an animal. Fucking hell. It's at this point that Stephen's trail ends. He's either in prison or keeping his head down from here on out. However, the way that this ended honestly shocked everyone who knew him on any level. I remember the tone of the King Scribe thing, and quite frankly, it was kind of a shock to literally everyone involved, whether they liked Stephen or not. I don't think anyone knew what was going on. I'd like to say that this couldn't happen now, but unfortunately, it's worse now. I think if Stephen was doing this today, he'd get away with it for longer because the police and authorities just don't care. So, I guess, really, the moral of this story is when people are suspicious in this way, report them, like, immediately. I tried to do this last year and it just didn't work out. And quite frankly, I know a few people who get very frustrated with how little the police give a shit. Unfortunately, it's a bit of an uphill battle before these things actually get the attention that they deserve. I'd like to thank all the people who helped with this. And I'd really like to thank the girl who I interviewed. She was really good, and I don't think things would have had the weight that they did if it weren't for her contribution, so I'm really grateful for that, and I just hope that this whole thing can make sure that people in the future are armed against Stephen's future attempts, assuming that there are any. It wouldn't surprise me if there are, but you know, that's just how it is. So, I'd just like to end things by just saying that I would really like to hear from anyone else who knows something that I haven't brought up. If you're one of the people I've mentioned in this video or was someone who was also a bystander who has a different perspective, feel free to reach out. My email's going to be in the description so people can see it. And also, if anybody has anything that's not on the internet anymore, like any saved videos or any videos that were taken down and they want to re-upload them, or pass them over so that I can use them in any follow-up things, I really appreciate that. I don't want to force anybody into anything or make anyone feel obligated, but admittedly, the more info that we can have out there on this guy, I think the better people can be armed, and I think ideally we won't need any more of this with new content, because quite frankly that is just something I'd love to avoid.